I think about this as philosophy being the hourglass of identity. It
Ooh.
really is like carrying your ashes. And I think what we find in those ashes is like what has passed through the hourglass. Like what starts in the hourglass is what we perceive as real, what we believe is certain, and what we desire to be actual. And when that hourglass is flipped, when the real comes in, like when death comes in or love flings open the door, that's when it's really tested. When relationships, betrayal comes in, that's when this place and experience of reality is turned in such a significant way. And a lot of that death has to just, that gets flipped. And right. And this is all something that happens over time in like multiple instances. Hence, the hourglass is just like a crazy symbolic condensement of that. And I think there's a real also spiritual struggle in this. And I think it's like the role of the shaman, you know, is to not care about that identity. They kind of go right through with it and realize that your identity isn't something that like can necessarily ground you in the ways that you would hope because of the intrusion of the real and what that does to your identity. But it's like it's understanding and integrating into your worldview that your identity doesn't ground out, it bottoms out, and it actually opens into the void, and that is actually what you rest on, that you have a resting place in this flux. And so, I mean, you can tell the deep work that it takes for that to be your operating place, and you need to constantly renew it. And it's, yeah, that's all I'll say on it at the moment.
Resting place in flux. Could you be more Hegelian?
Right.
Yeah, I love that phrase, intrusion of the real, because that's what it feels like. You think you're just, we even use the phrase lived reality, and we're just going about our day, la-di-dying, you know, living our life. But all of a sudden the real hits you and you think, so what has everything else been, you know? Optical delusion is probably the answer. And that's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately as well, is truth. When we're going to be talking about causes, because we're talking about Aristotle, we'll get to him eventually. Don't worry, he features in this conversation too. But in trying to identify causes nested in a wider hierarchy of search for truth proper, I've been thinking so much about how that search may well just be subtractive and not additive. And you mentioned something about yeah, I mean, even with the hourglass symbol, right? It's already there. It's passed through you. It's the contents are there. And so we've talked about philosophy as physiology. Maybe it's philosophy as alchemy, you know, washing away everything that isn't there. And I just wanted to read out this. I came across this Tolstoy quote earlier this week. He writes, "Truth, like gold, is to be obtained not by its growth, but by washing away from it all that is not gold." And it just reminds me, like, probably my favorite person to ever exist is Michelangelo. And he also says something similar about, I simply carved away everything that wasn't David, you know? And it's again, the recognition, the identification, the aspiration toward truth as a subtractive endeavor, not additive. So yeah, that definitely stuck out to me. And to you, sir. Now, let's see what you have to say about this.
Truth as subtractive, philosophy as alchemy. Come on.